and in what could sound the death knell for India's telecom sector. The Telecom Regulator Authority of India, or the TRAI, has yesterday revised call termination charges, with a key component, that's IUC, brought down to 6 paise per minute, effective from the 1st of October this year itself, making for a sharp 58% reduction. And what more, this amount will be brought to zilch by January 2020. The decision comes as a major setback for telecom incumbents, and let's discuss this further with Sanjay Kapoor, the industry expert, and Rajan, Mathews, Director General at COAI. Gentlemen, morning. Mr. Mathews, let me come to you first. Even when IMG is considering measures to help telecom sector, IUC cut comes as another blow to the sector altogether. Can IMG still overrule on this move, as it's further hits the profitability of the sector?
So clearly, this particular move by, as you indicated, 58% reduction is usually not happened anywhere else when IUC regimes are being adjusted. And clearly, this is the tariff order. So again, the incumbents, the major operators, have really no alternative but to go to the high courts, because TDSAT again has been removed because of a prior SC ruling. So again, we will be quite sure that most of the incumbent operators, given the significant impact of this tariff order, will most certainly go to the courts to seek some type of relief. But certainly, as you indicated, not good news for the industry, especially at a time when the government is trying to get the industry back on its feet. And so this is not going to be helpful either for the consumer or for the industry, for that matter. I think the TRAI keeps on talking about the consumer. Voice is at zero. How further down can you go? So I don't really think this cuts mustard in terms of saying this is continuously good for the consumer.
But how much relief, Mr. Mathews, are you expecting from the courts? Because I believe the previous case is still pending on IUC.
That is correct. So we will have to see how quickly the courts take up the order, because if the courts don't give a stay order, obviously the tariff order goes into effect. So the first thing that will have to be sought is an injunction to stop it and then to consider it. And so I think that would be the preferred direction that incumbents would be looking at. But again, the court will have to look at it. For one point, for the first time, the TRAI has indicated that it's using a lyric model, a pure lyric model, which is usually reserved for very mature networks. And this is a model that has very significant assumption sets embedded in it, and it's cut off from historical costs. And so this is one thing that operators will be looking for clarity from the regulator in terms of the model, the assumption sets, the data points, the cost parameters included. And this has been asked for by the operators. And so we'll wait to see whether the TRAI is forthcoming with that type of transparency in terms of its conclusion.
Sanjay, morning. Want to get you in on the discussion as well, because you've been there when there was predatory pricing and not so conducive regulatory environment. How do these kind of moves, which essentially make operator not recover cost impact in the long run?
So I think to begin with, there were murmurs on for a decline in IUC charges and also a sunset date being set to make it zero. And I think from that perspective, it's not come as a surprise. To me, the issue is larger than IUC. I think the entire pricing mechanism in India and in the telecom industry is really something that has been worrisome for the sustainability of the industry and for developing a healthy consumer experience. I think we are a very unique country where the price of spectrum is probably the highest in the world, and the price that we recover from the customers for our services is probably the lowest. And on top of that, we have made voice free. There's a galore data offered to customers at negligible prices. And we have actually set new benchmarks on how much data should be offered over a wireless network to the customers. And even matured markets don't offer such unlimited type of data to their customers. Given all this, IUC just adds a little more fuel to the fire. I don't think it's an issue of IUC alone. This would have been much easily tackled if the other parts of the pricing regime were probably in control. But I think nothing seems to be in control. The industry has been losing its top line. the bottom line has virtually vanished. There were operators who were making healthy profits per quarter, have slipped into the red. The net debt to EBITDA ratios look horrendous. The debt of the industry has piled up. And on top of that, we now have a new regime. I'm not saying the regime is right or wrong, because I'm sure TRAI would have looked at it. I think what concerns me is that given the plight of this industry, is the timing right one? Whether the discount is deep enough, well, there is new technology available on one side. But the problem is that with the current situation, where are existing operators going to find any money or inclination to invest back into consumer experience? Whether the price of IUC remains 14 paisa or 6 paisa, the customer is not getting any more out of this. Like my friend Rajan Mathews said, the prices of voice are already perceived to be free. So you can't make it now, a negative subsidy to the consumer. So, and I don't anticipate that any existing operator will go to the consumers and say, I was charging you 150 rupees for an unlimited pack. So Mr. Customer, from tomorrow, I will make it 130 rupees. That ain't happening. If somebody's got to take the price down on this, it should be only the challenger in the market. And if he does it, then everybody will be forced to do it. But I don't see that forthcoming. So I think we overall, devoid of IUC, are in a big mess in the industry. And I'm worried about the consumer in the long run, because the longevity of technology is shrinking, more investments have to be made, and our customer experience truly on voice and data sucks in this country.
Yeah. While it's important, and I get your point, it's important to make it economical, the services to the customers. Customer experience also at the end of the day needs some investment. But Mr. Kapoor, with asymmetrical incoming calls, would you expect a substantial dent on sector profitability and return ratios, or the industry, since the industry is already working with free voice costs, that assumption, now the revenue avenues have to be from data plus other value-added services. How will the industry balance it out?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. From the inception, when there was only a state incumbent in the market and the privatization of telecom happened, the IUC has been falling consistently. So I think that is a trend that probably was irreversible, and one was never expecting the IUC charges to go up. The issue is that there is every time a new entrant in the market, and if he needs a foothold, then he needs some sort of a competitive environment. If he has to pay a very high IUC charge, then how does he make any dent in the market? That's from the challenger perspective. From the incumbent perspective, he has been deploying a lot of costs to accommodate the traffic of the challenger. And if he doesn't recover his cost, then how does he make the service viable? And why should he be investing behind somebody else's call? And especially when they are perceived to be free and they are, given unlimited, then it becomes even more contentious. The problem is that we are caught in the midst of this jugglery at one end. And on the other side, there is a huge transformation in the country that is happening from voice to data. And we are still stuck on voice on TDM to some extent. 3G voice is IP based, but we are not fully IP based networks as yet. And there's a new challenger who comes up with an IP based technology and offers IP based voice, which is like packets. Therefore, the calling party pays regime comes to an end when data really flows through both parties pay. Although today for voice, even the challenger operator is not charging, and that's a special arrangement. But I think over time that will get eased out. If you look the world over, there are three revenue streams. There's a revenue stream of voice, there's a revenue stream of data access, and there's a revenue stream of digital services. Voice by and large is degrowing in every part of the world. The data access is almost stable. It doesn't grow beyond a threshold penetration because more data gets given to the customer for the same price. So the only growth that the developed world is looking at is actually coming from digital services. India is probably a little more embryonic in that stage, but eventually voice like SMS is going to fade away and it's going to get merged with data access somewhere. So I think, we are in a very precarious situation, and, I'm saying, yes, it's tough, but the good news is that we are going to consolidate from being a perfect competition to an oligopoly, which is a competition amongst three players, which means no player will be very small eventually. They'll be all almost similar sizes. And therefore, the traffic imbalance that exists today might be a transitory pain which will settle down. Now, how long is that transitory pain, whether it's 1 year, 2 years or 3 years, is anybody's guess. But at least the roadmap is clear that on 1st of January 2020, it is finders keeps all, and that's the way it's going to be. So I think everything in the market, including pricing structures, should get adjusted to this new normal that is being set up. I think that's the way forward.
All right, Mr. Mathews as well as Mr. Kapoor, that's just about the time that we have, but this is an important story, and let's see how the industry takes it forward, what kind of legal recourse they fall upon or rather evaluate, and how things shape up from here. We really appreciate both of you joining us this morning and giving us more perspective on how this impacts the telecom sector as a whole.
Thank you.